find a seat, or you want me to?
There are many times I feel like I'm engaged with the Teresa.
They should be encouraging such a dynamic leader.
Okay, Aaron's here. Okay.
Nourishment. Nourish our spirits, nourish our minds, nourish our bodies. Thank you, God, for gathering us. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Boy, the tent holds it in here, the volume drops way off every time.
This is the Mama Bear Story Share, and I'm so proud to be sitting here with this powerful panel of protectors. Their common denominator is they're all nurturing mama bears, smiling on the outside with spines of steel and extra determination and extra courage. Each one on this panel has put their body on the pipeline so-called right-of-way to protect earth, water, air, and humanity, especially the young that come after us, those who will inherit our earth. Our format this afternoon is going to be each of us will tell you why we did what we did, and then we'll go around again and tell you a little more detailed story of our action and open it for questions that we'll try to answer after each person's story. So I'm going to start. I don't know why I'm starting. I should wait and go last. But my name's Becky Crabtree. I took direct action against Mountain Valley Pipeline because they stole our land using eminent domain. They have pillaged our land, and all the town meetings I attended and all the letters I wrote and all the petitions I signed and everything else I did was not effective, and I had to do something else. So my frustration led me to take direct action.
My name is Elise Gerhardt. I'm from Huntington County, Pennsylvania, South Central Pennsylvania, and me and my mom, Ellen, we live along what is now the Mariner East 2 pipeline right-of-way, and I decided to take direct action. We kind of decided that before kind of pursuing the other routes, knowing that it was going to have to happen anyway. But yeah, just out of necessity again, and I'm going to pass the mic because I'm feeling a little like unprepared right this second.
Kind of go along with what Becky said. You know, you're raised saying, okay, these are the rules to follow, and this is the way you're supposed to proceed. The problem is, you try to follow the rules, and the pipeline makes the rules up as they go along. Okay. Again, it was, yeah, I'm trying to avoid talking. And again, it's out of frustration more than anything else, because you keep banging your head against the wall saying, why can't the officials, why can't these different agencies that are supposed to be protecting the environment, why aren't they doing their job? Why do we have to step in and do it? And it just gets to the point where you realize that they're not going to do it, and if you don't, then nothing's going to get done. So that's kind of where we came from.
Yes, which is right over the hill right there. I climbed up in a tree out of anger. Like, I would like to say it was for a greater purpose, but I was angry. I was angry that there was a company that felt that they could do this, that they had the right to take the property, that they had the right to cut down the trees, that they had the right to put in a pipeline, that they had a right to destroy and disturb my life. And I climbed up in a tree to mess with them, to cost them money, to slow them down, to piss them off. And that's why I did it, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. And I thank all of you guys that came and supported me when I was up there, and I thank you for being here now. And now I'm going to pass it to Red.
That's kind of hard to follow, isn't it? She makes me so proud. I'm Red Terry. I was in the troublemaking tree set. I had a nice following, but I went up in the tree because we knew MVP was lying through their teeth. They were supposed to stop cutting trees at the end of March. I went up, I was actually in the tree the end of March, but they found me the 1st of April. And they kept cutting trees, which we knew they would, because it's easier to pay the fines and lie than to follow the law. My bird watchers jogged through, 2 young kids they pulled from somewhere, and went, oh, no birds there, cut them down. But my whippoorwills were nesting on the ground where they dropped the trees, no problem. I went up because I was mad as hell and I wasn't going to take it anymore.
My name's Crystal, and I lived in a tree on Yellow Finch for a weekend, and I think mine was anger, and them starting with the terrorist charges is when I was like, this is it, you know, let's all get it. And then seeing what they all did definitely encouraged me, like, I can do this, so.
On Golden Girls, there's a mom and she says, picture this. So picture this. A warm summer night, the moon is full, there is mischief in the air. When my 1971 Pinto, my first car, I honeymooned in that car, I went to college in that car. I think we had 2 kids while I drove that car. And it's been sitting in the chicken lot because I couldn't bear to sell it or do any, it certainly wasn't going to be scrap metal because it was my first car. Well, in the pipeline, the dark saga of the pipeline, it seemed to me that the Pinto could be useful. And so the Pinto moved on that aforementioned summer night in the moonlight. I'm not sure how it got there. The police were very interested in how we got a Pinto on top of a mountain in the night. It wasn't there the evening before, but it was there come morning on the pipeline. It was actually sitting on an open trench. The trench was maybe 12 feet deep, and they had an earthenware bridge across for men and machines to cross. So we set it on someone I know, set it on the bridge, and we jacked it up on cross ties like Jenga sticks. So it was kind of up in the air a little bit. It was nowhere near the heights of tree sitters and such, but it was up in the air a little bit. And I was welded in, except for the back door, because I was afraid that if they welded me in all the way around and I fell in the trench, I couldn't get out, and that panicked me a little bit. So we left the back door, it was just bolted closed. It was a Pinto runabout, so it had a third door. At any rate, I crawled in it, I locked myself to a chain that went down around through the dashboard and down around the engine block, and so that I could not be removed that way. At any rate, the moon was out, the bugs were singing, the tree frogs were singing, it was beautiful. There was absolutely no guilt on my part, nor any sense of any danger. I'm sitting on my own land that I've worked a lifetime to pay for, in my own car, which had great sentimental value. I was not afraid. My husband, on the other hand, was a nervous wreck, and it was all we could do to keep him away from the site. At any rate, when dawn broke and the MVP workers showed up, it was so much fun to watch them look at me or look at my beautiful blue Pinto and then pull their phones out. It was as if they'd never seen a Pinto before. So we watched them call The sheriffs that arrived, I had taught 2 of them in 2nd grade too. The state troopers came, they were not as understanding. I had not taught them at all. At any rate, I was arrested, taken to the county seat. I got my picture made. I was charged with, what is that N word, not subordination, but something that is very vague and nobody really knows what it means anyway. And I got a lawyer, and you know, we had talks, and then they had a pre-trial hearing. And when we walked in, we heard all manner of loud voices in the back of the magistrate court, and they decided to, with much swearing, drop the charges against me. So my husband made jokes that yes, Grandma will be home for Christmas, she's been released. So at any rate, it was a very fulfilling experience. Now mind you, I stopped work for 5 hours, and I need to say that that Pinto did not levitate and go up the mountain by itself. And I cannot name the people who helped me. I really can't. I don't know their names, but I had a lot of help, and I appreciate the support staff. That's not the right word. The folks who supported me in my Pinto, I'm very grateful to them, and I appreciate y'all being here to hear my sad story. Thank you. The Pinto stands as a shrine in our sheep field. The road goes around a ravine, sort of, and it's on the other side of the ravine. All my signs have been destroyed, taken down, but they can't move the Pinto. And there are rocks that spell out "Stop MVP," and my grandchildren's job is to keep them painted white. And we have solar lighting on the Pinto. There is talk of a parade float, but I'm afraid somebody might shoot me, so I really don't want that. But it is available to travel when needed.
It's also there in the video.
Oh yes, it's in that music video. Yes.
Through the river, it's in the Through the River music video. Tell them about something the neighbor called about the banjo picture. Tell a good story too.
Okay, I'm a substitute teacher, and I was at James Monroe High School, plying my craft to nobody who listens, but I was there teaching, and my neighbor called from up on the hill, and she said, "I don't know how to tell you this, but there's a man playing a banjo on top of the Pinto, and come quick." So I had to calm her down, and it was the music video being made, but she didn't know about it, and she was quite concerned. She was guarding the Pinto.
So our story kind of started in May 2015 when she was saying about how she had called me, and it was actually my birthday, and she was like, "Happy birthday, and by the way, there's this company trying to put a pipeline through the property." And I said, "Oh, no." And I immediately started getting on the phone and calling people and trying to figure out what we were going to do to stop this thing. It was like the minute I heard about it, I knew we were going to try. So that's how I found out about the project. I had been inspired by some other folks who had been using tree sits to prevent deforestation, development, other pipelines, the KXL pipeline when it was going through Texas. The tar sands blockade was something that I had been aware of. And I was like, well, they've got trees, we've got trees, like, let's try to do a tree sit and block the pipeline. So I packed everything in my car, I drove cross country, I went home to central Pennsylvania. And I did that because I grew up there in the woods, spent a lot of time, like as a kid, playing in the creek, in the mud, and getting acquainted with the critters and all that kind of stuff. And that place is like my heart. So I knew I had to do something. I was very compelled. I was very angry at that time. I'm still angry, but in different ways now. But so I was pretty motivated. And I went home, I started calling out to networks, I started finding people on the internet. In Pennsylvania, there had been a lot of people fighting fracking for about a decade already before this was happening. So I tried to figure out what folks were already working on these issues, what had already been done, what could we build on, and like, how could we make this happen? So we spent that first almost year, my folks were fighting the eminent domain in court. We were going to rallies, we were going to public meetings, all that kind of stuff. We lost the eminent domain in early 2016, and they didn't have any permits for the pipeline yet, but they decided they were going to come in and cut all the trees anyway. The property where we live is like pretty much fully wooded, except for like the area right around the house. So we had about 27 acres of woods, 3 of which they were going to try to turn into the pipeline. So in March 2016, when they were telling us they were going to come in, they got an injunction against us in the county court. We just, the morning that they were going to come in, we had a few people go up in the trees first thing in the morning, I was occupying a platform. The other folks who were up, they were kind of winging it a little bit more in hammocks and whatnot. So yeah, it wasn't very cordial when the crews and the cops all showed up. It was very confrontational, like from the get-go. I'm sitting up there in the tree yelling at them like, we live here, you don't belong here, get the hell out of here, But they, that first day they came through and they arrested 2 people. One of my friends who was trying to keep them from killing me, basically, like cutting around these big white pines that were around the other white pine that I was up in. So they arrested people. There was a lot of mayhem for a couple of days there. The second day she got arrested, trying to, again, like protect me and the other tree sitters. So that went on for a while. Things calmed down after that point for a couple of weeks. People got out of jail. All of a sudden, after the deadline for tree clearing, one morning, we're just sitting at the house and these crews come back out of nowhere. So I grabbed my stuff and went back up the tree, and they're filming me and telling me I can't be there and whatever. And then she got arrested again. I didn't get arrested because I was up the tree and they didn't want to come get me, but so we went through that whole thing again. I'll let you tell your story, but she went to jail, went to like solitary confinement, like it was this whole thing, and that happened all of a sudden, so we weren't really prepared for it at that time, so that was a rough one. And then just dealing with the kind of devastation of them having like butchered the land like they did on those couple of days. But we got through those couple of weeks and we were able to keep them from cutting down about a dozen trees or so in the right-of-way. And then after that, we wound up kind of gaining some more momentum and getting the word out about what we were doing, and more people kind of came to our aid. And we wound up forming a ground encampment to support the tree sits when they started the actual construction of the pipeline in early 2017. So we had the encampment called Camp White Pine going on, and we kept those tree sits up for 741 days. Wow. So it's a long story, so I'm trying to figure out which points to really pick out and all that. But in the meantime, while that was going on, everything was popping off at Standing Rock and these other like huge, mass mobilizations against pipelines. We heard about what Red and Minor did down here, and we were like, oh, hey, that sounds like what we're doing. So it's good to finally meet you all, and I'm not sure, there's a lot of other things to say, but I'm gonna pass it on for now, and she can fill in some holes and tell you her part.
Elise is the organizer in the family. She knows how to network. She was like the driving force of getting things together. And that I kind of like provided the area. Yeah, at Camp White Pine, it was my first experience with doing something like this, and just to have people, you know, willing to come in from literally dozens of different states and spend some time. You know, we had some people who were up in the tree sits. We had ground support. We had people who were doing cooking. We had people who were doing media and that. And it was a lot of organization, which I don't do organization. But like Elise said, the first in 2016, we knew they were coming out because the surveyors had been out, so we knew the tree crew was coming out too. And they came escorted by the Huntington County Sheriff's Department, who said that, of course, they were there to make sure everybody was safe. Yeah. The first person that was arrested was a friend of ours who had just come in the night before, spent like 2 hours standing next to the Huntington County Sheriff talking about, like the previous week was Easter Sunday, and they were talking about church services and stuff like that. And he said the next thing he knew, somebody came over with a piece of paper and said, "Are you this person?" And he said, "Yeah." He was arrested for being an organizer because he had a walkie-talkie. He was taken to jail, charged with summary disorderly conduct, misdemeanor disorderly conduct. Was he charged with it? Not the injunction, because the injunction we weren't even on the easement. We were on the side of the easement. Those two charges.
The tree sitters were on the easement. The support people were hanging around.
Yeah, we were just yelling. But for those two relatively minor offenses, he was arrested. His bail was set at $200,000. Okay. The person that Elise had talked about, her friend that was trying to, I mean, they were cutting trees down around Elise's tree. And I had said from the beginning, I was willing to do whatever ground support. I was not feeling comfortable climbing up trees, so I give you credit for doing that. But, you know, to stand there and watch people cutting trees down that are actually bouncing off the ties that this tree is attached to other trees to, it was awful. And Elise's friend went over just to let them know, because she didn't know, maybe they didn't realize that they were tied together. She was arrested, same charges. Her bail was set at $100,000. The only reason that those bails were set that high was to intimidate people. There was no other reason for that other than to say, look, we can, you know, arrest you guys, we can set these bails, why don't you all just go home? They didn't realize that we were home. Crash. And the reporter grabbed my mic and said, go do whatever you have to do. So I didn't know what to expect when I turned around, and they're cutting these trees down, and there are two sheriff's deputies standing there. So I went up to them, I said, I'm not on the easement, but I want you to know you have to do something because somebody's going to get hurt. So their solution to doing something was they arrested me. I don't know, by the time I guess they figured they weren't going to be intimidating people because my bail was only $5,000. So, but again, you know, they came in, they clear cut. One of the frustrating things is the area where this tree sit that Elise was in was supposed to be the temporary workspace. They came in and they cleared probably well over 100 trees from that area. They never used it. They cut those trees down and never used that for anything. So again, you know, after they did that, there was a respite because they, in their injunction, they specifically stated that they had to have those trees down by March 31st because beginning of April, Migratory Bird Act kicks in. And they can't cut trees down then until November. So, end of March rolls around, we figure, okay, we've got some breathing space here, we can kind of relax, because you get to the point where every time you hear a helicopter, every time you hear voices in the woods, you are running out trying to figure out, you know, if anybody's on the property or what's going on. So we heard voices and we went down and they were
chainsaws.
Yeah,
we heard.
Yeah, well, and she's yelling to me that we have to get down there. And we go down and we say, you can't be here. You said in your injunction that you could not cut after March 31st. Well, what they did was they called the state police. The state police, who we learned later were really ticked off because they were supposed to be on a drug bust. And they ended up on our property instead. They came out and I had the paper and I said, it says right here in the injunction they cannot cut after March 31st. And the state police response was, well, I don't know who typed that paper up. It could be anybody. That was my next arrest. And again, they couldn't get to Elise because she was up in the tree, and they kept telling her that when she came down, she was going to be charged and she was going to be arrested. So talk about incentive for not coming down out of a tree. I mean, that's it. But I was a school teacher too. It must be something about teaching, I don't know. But you know, you hear all these things about when you're arrested, you have the right to remain silent, and you know, you don't have to answer questions. So when I went to jail, they said, okay, we have some questions for you. You going to answer them? I said, no. You know, I'm not going to answer questions. And they say, okay, that's a level 1 offense. I've never been arrested and in jail before. I don't know what a level 1 offense is. I found out what a level 1 offense means is that you are put in solitary confinement for refusing to answer questions. Because they're just trying to gather information to make sure that you're safe. So I don't know how many of you have ever been in solitary. Okay, a few of us. You know, you get to wear these lovely little outfits, and in my case, they took my glasses. I can't see anything without my glasses. So I was essentially blind. At this point, I'm ticked off. You know, it's like, okay, you arrested me, you have me in solitary, what's the worst you can do? So I went on a hunger strike. Not a recommended way of losing weight, but it works. And I did that, well, that time for 4 days. Another arrest later, it was a week. But, you know, the whole thing is these companies are convinced that they can come in, do whatever they want to. People are just going to say, okay, you know, we don't want to fight you because there's no way we can make a difference. You know, we can't do anything. You're this big corporation. You have all the bucks and everything. And all you need are some dedicated people who are willing to put their foot down and say no. And they're not used to people saying that. And it throws them for a loop there for a while. And, you know, the more people that we can get together, putting their foot down and just say, no, you can't do this, we're not going to let you, it's going to make a difference.
The third time she got arrested, that was kind of the big one. That was when they were actually like, they cut down the trees, and they were actually like had moved equipment and stuff in onto the property. They were going to be doing like horizontal directional drilling there. It's like this, you know, I mean, y'all know how like it's a huge project. But so she was out there the one day, like kind of, well, she was out there every day actually. Every day, like kind of letting them know that they weren't welcome, they shouldn't be there. You know, trying to keep them away from the streams and all that kind of stuff. Got in front of their equipment a little bit. They wound up charging her with indirect contempt of court. Took her to jail, held her for a week in solitary, and then took her to trial and sent her to jail for 2 months during, when was that? It was July through September of 2018. Yeah, 2018. So there was like that whole thing. So it was like just this enormous disruption of everything, of your whole life. And like, she went to jail. Like, I'm trying to do caregiving for my dad who's elderly and like, you know, take care of everything while she's locked up for 2 months for like literally standing on her own property and just saying no. That's really all that happened. So it was quite the experience. We wound up a whole 8 months of security on the property, like floodlights, 6 security guards, helicopters flying over, like all this stuff, like when camp was going on and afterwards, even like well afterwards. Like they you know, they had people following us. They followed me to work, like took my picture, put it on the internet, said this person's a terrorist. Like, so we got death threats and all kinds of stuff that happened during that time. So yeah, it got pretty wild. But then we also, we just kept trying to do whatever we could to fight back, and a lot of it wound up being like going to other places and like meeting with other folks and doing things like going to shareholders meeting. Like I went to a U.S. Bank shareholders meeting and spoke there to the president of U.S. Bank. She went to another, what was that meeting you went to?
They were considering a merger.
It was another like an Energy Transfer Partners company kind of thing, and like the CEO who's worth $4 billion, Kelsey Warren, he was there, and so she was there like telling him he's, you know, messing up and everything, giving him the 3rd degree. But you know, so like we had to like do things like that to like take it to them and everything, because they thought they could just come and like destroy our lives and destroy the land, you know. So it, you know, it was like holding it down at home, but also having to like take it out and like take it to them and join with other people who were doing similar things.
I was going to say, in addition to being classified as eco-terrorists, we also apparently we're bear whisperers, and we attract mountain lions to our property. And you know, it's like, you guys obviously are not from around here, you know. So it's, yeah, it's just been one thing after another. But the thing of it is, with all of these pipeline fights, there are differences for each fight, because you have to tailor your resistance to your area. Like, you know, you can't do tree sits in the Great Plains if there aren't any trees. But, you know, you have to adapt to your situation. But the underlying factors are what tie us together. The fact that these companies think they have the God-given right to come in and destroy property and to, you know, build these pipelines without consent and to contribute to, you know, the climate issues that we've got. And it's just, again, it's just a matter of everybody standing together and saying no.
That right there was a hard lesson for me to learn, the community of it. So we found out that MVP was going to come through here, and we're like, really, this is literally the dumbest thing I've ever heard. This terrain is not built for that. And I remember more than one dinner conversation where it felt like we were kind of circling the wagons, but by we, I mean my immediate family, my parents and my brother and my partner, and we're trying to figure out how we are going to protect this plot of land, what we're going to do to stop them, what we're going to do to fight them. It was every conversation. It's like, okay, well, we can't chain ourselves to the tree, even though that'd be a great gesture because they could access us, and we can't do this because they could access us, and just more than one conversation. And then the Peters Mountain trees that's happened. And I looked at exactly one photo and I went, holy shit, we can do that. We can absolutely do that. We can build that. We can put it up. We can do that. And so my mother and one of my brothers took time off. We waited for them to come out and stake so we knew where they were going to come. You got to pick a tree within that spot, so you had the hurry up and wait game. And then they did that, and I reached out to a few people of like, okay, I'm not built for the cold, guys. I've got no supplies for this. I don't like to camp. Not my thing at all. I'm like, let me borrow your stuff. And I had a massive outpouring from people of like, okay, this is the gear you're gonna need, borrow this. I had like 4 sleeping bags up there because people know that I'm cold all the time. I had a good friend bring me a case of Dr. Peppers, which I thought was silly at the time, but some days when I was up there, that was half my calories. And she knew it would comfort me. Sorry. But it always felt like this, our tiny unit fighting it. And then when we went up in the trees, and my brother Coles was in his tree sit, which is back here, I was in a tree sit right here, and then my mother was at hers. And our partners and our other family members were like, okay, I'm your ground support, and I'm your ground support, and I'll check on you after I get off work. And then Mom had people camping under her, and I had a neighbor who I've known since he was a child, but we weren't close. And he brought out a tent, and he slept in the snow under me. And Coles had people come up and bring him food, and it was like, holy shit, like, we have this community. All of these people rallied together. Sorry, it's still hard to talk about. It's been a year. But all of these people showed up and supported, and they continue to support, and you guys continue to show up. And I'd love to talk more, but I can't.
Sorry, guys. Oh my God. Thank you, Minor. Yeah, she's my baby. Yeah, I did tell Minor we were going to hit the trees and that I was going up, and I don't know if she, texted her brother, but he was here within a day and a half. He said, Mom, what are we going to do? I said, let's go to Lowe's. That's a good place to start. I hadn't paid much attention to it. I was impressed by the other tree sets. I was kind of clueless. But anything was better than letting them come through. Sorry guys, I am a tree hugger. I do love my oak trees. I think they're the most beautiful trees in the world. These bastards decided to take 13.78 acres of just my husband and I's land. They start in a hayfield, they go through the wetlands, they go through across under the road. My brother-in-law has 2 renters. Go under there. There's one way in, one way out. They go through the brook that was next to Minor's tree set. They laid trees in the brook because they're digging up that brook to lay their damn pipe. They're coming across here, down here, across the back of my field, up the top of my 100-year-old orchard. And then they're going further up down into my neighbor's yard. I'm sorry, 13.78 acres off of just mine and Coles's. They are destroying every part of our property. I have 3 beautiful children. This mountain has been in this family for 7 generations. My children were going to inhabit and be the stewards of this mountain. We have the wildlife, we have the clean water. This is a Tier 3 waterway that they're going to cross 26 times on this mountain. Oh, I've been corrected. 36 times this Tier 3 waterway. Yeah, I was ready to do whatever it took. And what amazes me is my family is close. We've always been close. But the minute I said, let's do something, my children were right there. What do we need to do, Mom? Let's do this. I have planners. You know, I have people that know how to get things done. I was down for Easter because who the hell works on Easter? Come on. My son and I were heading into town for lunch. We had their tree sets up. And I saw Precision Pipelines, trucks. And I went, son, we gotta head over there. We got there in time to watch the famous Steve pulling my ladder down from my tree set. And I walked up, and there are kids here, but I got very ugly and told him to leave my ladder alone. And I said, son, put my ladder back up. And I went back up in, and I said, you can take the ladder away. Steve said, and who are you? I said, my name is Hillary. Hillary who? Hillary Clinton. And he looked at my son and goes, and you are? He goes, Donald Trump. And Steve was not amused. The two guards with him were dying. But they decided that they were very upset we were in the trees. My son, they put his set out of the LOD. They moved him. They, you know, we'll just move our stuff around. My daughter was in the tree, and my son stayed under my daughter's tree for the next 33 days. My son did not leave his sister the whole time she was in those trees. He would come and check on me occasionally, but I had Mara down there, and I had one hell of a camp that I didn't know that people cared that much. But, you know, Genesis, my little mountain friend, was camping with me. The Coffee Sons would come up with their sleeping bags and lay them before they circled me, you know, take me off. They would just flop down under my tree and spend the night to make sure I was okay. Beth and Bruce Coffee, when their kids were busy on the weekends doing what kids do, they walked over. It was 19 degrees. It was sleeting. We had thunderstorms, the wind whipping. We had flooding in the creek. And these two people walked over and slept under my tree set so I wouldn't be there alone. That they couldn't do anything to me because I had my neighbors there with me. And the night that we had that hellacious thunderstorm, got people there to stay with me. She gave me an 80-pound little girl who actually stayed with me. And I had people from the Fusion Center, which I had never heard of before, coming at me through the field with nightlight headlamps on. And I looked at her and I said, hide. She grabbed her light and went after them. They left. I don't guess they knew she was all of 80 pounds. Trish did so much to help. Tammy Belinsky, everybody. Facebook, I am clueless. They started the Facebook. They built me up probably more than I ever deserved. But they did that to bring this to everybody's attention. Otherwise, nobody would have known anything. So I pretty much sit in a tree, froze my ass off a lot, cussed a lot. Yeah, they expanded my tape 5 times because I was nice. And, but yeah, it got out because of all my ground people. And I will be forever grateful to everybody that went out of their way, came out of their comfort zones just to support us. I'm done too.
So I don't live, the MVP is coming through eastern Montgomery County where I live. This is awkward. And so that's how I got involved. I've been involved in other things like No More Jail Deaths in Roanoke City and stuff like that. But when I realized it was coming through our town, that's when I got more involved and met with a good guy, Alan, and we rode around and took pictures, and I'm like, oh my God, this is horrible. How is this even possible? Then we met with our board of supervisors, and nobody listens to what we're saying, so everything they've said is correct, and it just turns to anger, and okay, what do I do now? So, so some really cool folks showed up in our town the 1st of September with some tree sits, and it's just kind of been on since then. Just, you know, just trying to be supportive with them. Just listening to local stories, y'all stories. It breaks my heart, and I feel like I try to carry that with me because if this was me, I would hope other folks would do it also. I don't know what to say. So I just decided I wanted to go up in a tree because I felt like, what can I do other than going to a board meeting or speaking in front of people, which I don't do. I'd rather be more a direct action kind of person. So what I guess inspired was for me to go up in a tree was definitely the terrorist charges that West Virginia is handing out, which is ridiculous. I mean, I was in Charlottesville, nobody got terrorist charges that day. Locking yourself to equipment should never be a terrorist charge. Like, that's insane. So I think that's what really pissed me off, was watching these kids catch these terrorist charges. And then someone asked if I could speak in Leesburg, and I was like, yeah, okay. And then I thought, well, wouldn't it be better if I went up into a tree and just sent my kid, my 12-year-old, to speak to people instead of me? So I kind of got off easy, so I asked some friends that have climbed trees what would I need to know how to do, and then I was sent home with a homework assignment. And I did, and I Googled and learned how to tie some knots, and I even have my cord here, which just is just constantly doing it and learning how to, it's just practice. And just practice and practice, and mastered the traverse line, and then went up, so.
And your son was awesome.
Oh, thank you. So that's how, because I feel like I love this, being able to see so many people that I've never met before, but I've listened to and I've talked to on the phone, or, you know, just all inspiring. Emily Satterwhite, I don't even know if she's here, but just all these moms, it's going to take moms, I think, to just be done and angry. And I know people get mad and like, don't be so angry, but I feel like we're just getting the most done when we're just fueling this fire, for sure. And, you know, everyday people, that's what it's going to take, is just try it. And I never thought I would ever be in a tree, but I love the resistance, the resilience, the lessons that this is teaching everybody is priceless. And I'm just happy to really be a part of it and moving forward, and, you know, that's all.
You were 40, 50 feet high. 50 feet, 50 high.
Yeah. And had the super full moon at night. It was great. Yeah, it was awesome.
So, Red and Minor ended up really being cut off from your support
Yes, that's,
and even kind of starved.
yeah.
I think you need to share that.
Oh, Miner's got that.
So the day that they came to cut, the biologist came through it like stupid early. But even before that, Roanoke County Police showed up under my tree set at about 5:05 a.m. So it's dark, and I woke up to a twig being snapped under me, which had a very distinct, like human versus an animal stepping on that thing. Woke me up. I don't have my glasses. I'm blind. Like looking at everybody on here, we're all blind. And I'm in a sheet of plywood and I can't find my glasses and I'm afraid to turn on a light because what is under me? Like, let me just give you a target. No. So I'm like, hello? And it's a Roanoke County SWAT team under me, checking to make sure that I am safe, which is code for making sure somebody's in the tree before we come through and cut everything. So that was super fantastic. So they come through, we are read a notice to please get out of the tree. Mom had some choice words. I told them politely, no thank you, I'm gonna stay here. And then they basically roped us off because now we were in violation of the quick take. We were now in MVP's easement, blah, blah, blah. I don't feel bad at all, but we were now going to be charged with misdemeanors for trespassing and a whole bunch of other nonsense. The police never left past that. Roanoke County, a Virginia state trooper, and then a global security henchman. Basically, I had just one of each under me. I think Mom had an army under her because, again, she's got a mouth. So with that, they took a police tape line and wrapped it around us. And that was an active crime scene. And nobody was allowed to cross it. If you crossed it to bring us water or food or whatever, you were now aiding and abetting and they would arrest you. So that was an interesting tension that then followed the entire time we were up there. But when they did that, they cut off support from our ground support. Now people were just moral support. They can no longer pass up food, supplies, water, anything, nothing at all. We did have supplies with us, obviously, but without being restocked. But our ground support immediately jumped on that, of the fact that we were no longer being given food, and those in jail are given 3 meals a day, and we were not even getting that privilege. So it was kind of coordinated. Roanoke County was made out to look super terrible in that, which again, I don't feel bad about. So it was coordinated that they would provide us meals. But meals were 2 bologna sandwiches, 2 cookies, a bag of juice, and a bottle of water when they remembered the water. And that was delivered from the Roanoke County Jail in Salem to us every day, 3 times a day. Yeah. And they said, and so our ground support's like, well, if this is too much trouble for you guys, we can supply food. Like, that's not, we've got food literally right here. It's right next to us. We can give it to them. If it's too expensive for you, if it's too much of a hassle. And they said, no, and we're not really sure that the food that you could provide is going to be nutritious enough for them. That was literally the line that we were fed, that the food that our supporters could give us was not nutritious. But 2 bologna sandwiches, 2 cookies, and a bag of juice. And when I say bag, it was a bag. A Capri Sun would have been easier. This was a bag. And I went, how do I open this? And they went, don't know, don't care. Cool. Thanks for all your help. So I threw away a lot of those, but my last day when I came out, I saved I think I'd only gotten breakfast and maybe lunch at that point, but I saved those. And then I mailed each of those sandwiches individually to our governor, and I had sandwiches. That's true. months. I still occasionally send him one. I sent him one that sat in my fridge for about 6 months, so it was nice and gross. But yeah, so you guys can just do that. Bologna sandwich, padded envelope. He does, I don't know if he actually ever looks at them, but he does know that they get sent to his office, so. Any other questions while I've got the mic?
Have you done anything to try to reach out to people who work on the pipeline, police, to have them, you show them empathy, you show them love, you get them on your side? Have you done anything of that nature? I've been involved with things like this for 60 years, and when you can bring forth to the people on the ground who represent the power structure that they're getting screwed as much as you are, they will start supporting you. I was involved in the Stop Storm campaign, and we got the Suffolk County SWAT team to have our backs. So the feds would point guns at us. The SWAT team would say, hey, you shoot the kids, we're going to shoot you. And we did it because we spent a whole year showing those police empathy. Have you guys thought of that?
I will say that both my mother and I were given cell phones that had direct access to a police negotiator, so that was trippy. But after a while, I asked my negotiator, like if he knew why I was up there. I was like, have you looked at the damage that these things do, the waterways? And he called me the next day and he goes, you know, it actually turns out that the farm next to me has the pipeline going through it. I'm like, well, congratulations, I'm up here protesting for you as well. And then he wasn't allowed to talk to me anymore. They gave me a new negotiator. So we noticed that any of the police that seemed to be supportive of it never came back. I got a new negotiator because he's like, oh yeah, this is affecting me as well. He didn't come back. So I personally haven't tried to reach out to anybody. I was on the ground, I'd already come out of the trees, and they were cutting at another section close by to a place that's close to my heart. And there were two people standing there, and they looked at me and they said, we really admire what you did, and this is the most beautiful place we've ever seen. And it took a lot of self-control on my part to be like, destroy this. Sorry, that wasn't appropriate for tiny children. Yeah, please do not look me in the eye and say this is beautiful as you're behind me cutting down my trees. No, no. So I personally have not tried to get anybody on my side. I don't know, would anybody like the microphone to see?
So I thought it was funny how you were talking about the swearing thing, because I'm the one that cusses at them. She's the firm and polite one. So we're like the reverse of what y'all do apparently. But yeah, I mean, for us, when they came in 2016, that was the first time that the police were there, that the workers were there other than surveyors and all that. And like I said, it was like immediately confrontational, and I was up in that tree 50 feet up, and you know, they're destroying my home and doing things that could have really, really hurt me or killed me. And I'm like sitting there like cussing at them, but also like begging them and being like, what are you doing? Like, you know, we live here, you're our neighbors, like at the county sheriff's and everything. Like, I mean, sure, I tried to be like, yeah, like you're our neighbors, what are you doing? They don't care about you. They're, you know, $50 billion corporation, yada, yada. They did not ever care. You know, and then seeing my mom, who's never, like, she's never been a confrontational person. She's never, like, been in trouble in her whole life. Like, you know, them dragging her off to jail and all that kind of stuff. Like, it was never a negotiation with them. It was never gonna be.
You have to get outside that box,
like,
and do something that does affect us.
Beyond what they did to us personally. Like, I mean, look at everything that happened at Standing Rock and people that got severely injured by the police. Like, you know, these things are like to the point where like they don't care. And like the darker your skin is, the less they care, like, what they do to you and how much they hurt you. So, like, it's totally, I mean, we tried. I mean, we see these people from time to time. My job I have now, I have to interact with the local cops sometimes, and like I try it, but like we kind of tried a little bit of everything. We tried all the legal routes. We tried the, you know, like getting out in the community and everything. And what they did to us, this company and their private security and the cops, they drove a huge wedge in between us and our community. These people who weren't even from there. You know, all these like security workers coming from Louisiana and whatever, and like, you know, calling us terrorists, that we were bringing violence into our community, and made people in our community who maybe were a little bit more on the side of like development or what have you, like literally come after us and make death threats about us, our friends. Like, I spent many days like terrified that the cops were going to show up at any moment at our house, and at the very least they were going to shoot my dog, you know, or something like that. And we lived like that for like 2 years, with them like hostilely coming at us. You know, and all we did was we were at home and we went out in the woods and went up in a tree or stood along the right-of-way, and that's all we did. We made food, like, you know, we were just hanging out until they came and made it a conflict every single time. So we weren't, we did what we did out of love of like, you know, the people around us and our family and all of that, and they came at us with the aggression, you know what I mean? Like, we never wanted to go like looking for that fight, you know. All we could do was defend against the things that they were deciding to do to us. So there's no balance of power there. There's no point at which you can be like, oh, like, just, you know, just stop what you're doing, because they do not care. Like, these companies murder people worldwide with like their pollution. They, you know, kill activists in other countries. They charge people as terrorists and felons and everything, and throw people into prison here. You know, that's what the environment is actually like. And it doesn't matter how polite you are or how nice you are about it. Like, when I saw them taking my mother away, she is like the last person I would ever expect to be like dragged off to jail and treated that way, you know what I mean? And like, that's what they do. I'm there like, you know, telling them to F the hell off and get out of here, and like being aggressive. But it doesn't matter if you're aggressive or if you're nice about it. They're gonna do the same thing to you. So, I mean, yeah, no, I mean, I'm still very mad at that company and these companies and what they do to like further any existing like divides that are in communities. Like, they just capitalize on that and they push it, and they, you know, they are the terrorists, and there is not negotiating with that.
That's a corporate structure, and it has been that way since
I think your time is up. How about a round of applause for these brave ladies?
Going to be discussing inclusiveness and equity of Indigenous groups in spaces like these, and how can these groups come together and do this in a way that is just and right, and making sure that we're uplifting voices of the Indigenous communities that were once on this land. So I'm going to turn the mic over now and let Jen talk a little bit about her ancestry here. And I didn't forget to mention one thing. I also wanted to, as we do this land acknowledgement, I'm sorry, I'm not a public speaker, I want to also discuss the other tribes that are here currently in Virginia. We have groups that are Eastern Samoan, like my own tribe, as well as a large group of Algonquians and Iroquoians. And those tribes are the Nottoway, the Mattaponi, Upper Mattaponi, Pamunkey, Eastern Chickahominy, and Nansemond. I think I got everyone. I'm sorry if I missed someone. Thank you.
Osio, that's hello. So you all know us as Cherokee, but we refer to ourselves as Slagi. And so I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma. I was raised in rural Oklahoma and Texas, but we are very close to my ancestral lands right now. MVP is going to run through those lands. So I just prepared a couple of things so that I don't go off rambling on y'all. So I speak for myself today. As an Indigenous person, I've been in the fight to save our Mother Earth and all the living beings on it since before I was conceived. It's my duty and honor to stand on the front lines against global climate chaos, greed, corporatocracy, colonialisms, and the many other systems of power and oppression that the white invasion brought to Turtle Island. My people's ancestral lands aren't too far from where we stand now. Before the land theft, we spanned across much of Appalachia and parts of or the entirety of what is now present-day Virginia, West Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Alabama. In our creation story, the Appalachian Mountains were created by the buzzard as he flew looking for land for our animal relatives in the sky vault. He created the valleys when he became tired and his wings brushed the land. MVP and much of the 400-mile proposed Petro Hub corridor through the Ohio River Valley falls on these lands. Our lands and bodies have been impacted for centuries by logging, coal mining, agricultural industry, and now by fracking. It's our sacred burial mounds and remains, as well as those of the many other Indigenous nations who call this land home, and the former enslaved Black people who were kidnapped and brought here through the transatlantic slave trade, whose remains are being desecrated. Despite this, because my people, the Slagi people, do not have recognized tribal governments on these lands, we do not have the right to repatriate our ancestors and bring our sacreds home. But landowners do, the primarily white landowners. I find this utterly disgusting. This, for me, is a continuation of our genocide. So we have been here since time immemorial. Despite how many generations you and yours may have called this mountains home, they're not yours to claim. And you've only had them because of all that we have lost. Erasing the existence of Indigenous people of Appalachia and refusing to acknowledge settler and white privilege are a form of genocide. Frankly, I'm tired of hearing the same colonizing narrative of white property rights around pipelines. Indigenous people have warned colonizers for centuries of the impacts of resource extraction and global climate chaos, just as we are continuing to warn you. You must respect Indigenous lives, knowledge, and our lands, or you doom us all to extinction. Wado, thank you.
So in late June, a couple of volunteer environmental organizers started to reach out across the border to Virginia and talk about doing something together. And this was a wonderful idea and invitation that wasn't new in anyone's mind, but you know, we've all been busy. We've all been busy fighting as hard as we can. Climate change, pipelines, and increasingly a host of other political invasions. And very quickly that group began to talk and to understand that we of course needed to also reach out to West Virginia. and have a response during the Global Climate Strike Week that was tri-state. And so it's just a beginning. And it's very difficult because many of us who have worked together now for years and years to fight the MVP and the ACP in Virginia, we've built up some knowing of each other and some trust. And so expand that coalition to knowing and trust and organizing styles and just personality styles is a challenge, and it's one that I am so grateful that all the people that hung in to plan today and tomorrow decided to take on. Because today is one of the results and tomorrow will be another. We will be stronger because we'll be together and we'll be responding as a larger group. So the other purpose of this gathering in my mind today is to be together in real time. I can't tell you, at least 20 times today I've introduced two people, and as soon as I said their names, they knew who the person was because they've been on a conference call with them or an email thread or they've commented on the same things on the internet, but they had never before stood together and touched each other's hands. So I think we need this. We need this day that we picked. We've shaped, not in reaction to any calendar that the corrupt regulatory agencies or political administrators set up, not in reaction to whatever the fresh new horrors are on the construction of the Mountain Valley Pipeline, but a day that we picked and we shaped. And as you can see, we're a lot more beautiful, and we're a lot more clever, and we're a lot more talented. And because we have a lot more love in our hearts, and because of this, we're gonna win. We're gonna stop these pipelines and all pipelines, and we're gonna make our best shot at stopping climate change. There's over 80 people volunteering here today, either on site today or part of the planning or part of the fundraising or part of something. And I can't name them all, but nothing like this happens without that kind of commitment, and I'm very grateful to them all. And thank each and every one of you who brought delicious food, but I'd like to have just a shout out and a round of applause for Seeds of Peace. For organizing it all and giving us baseline to that potluck, and they're so good at feeding people wherever they are and wherever they're trying to resist.
Yeah!
Here along this wall is, if you haven't seen it yet, the Ancestor Ally Altar, which was an early idea in planning for today. I kept hearing about Aunt Grace on Bent Mountain, and all these different people kept saying, boy, if Aunt Grace was here, they'd be in trouble, you know? And so it turned out that everybody had an Aunt Grace. You know, everybody had someone that they felt was here beside them, even if they've already passed over, that there was someone who was their ally. And it wasn't always a human being. Sometimes it was an animal, a wind, other things. So the Ancestor Ally Altar is over there, and we invite you all to, if you haven't already added something to it, to add something to it. And flanking the Ancestor Ally Altar are two vessels to hold the protected waters, which you may have brought with you. We invited people to bring a little bit of water from a waterway that they love and that they're pledging to protect. And we will have a way to share those waters later in the evening. So that's over there. And then there's t-shirts over here for Sunsing and this one. And all of those proceeds go to Interfaith Alliance for Climate Justice, which has also been key in helping us find the funding for today. Sorry, so sorry. It's like a good bake. I want to give a shout out also to the people who led our workshops today. Becky Crabtree, who led the Mama Bear Story Share. Whew, that was a beaut. Amelia Williams, who was doing Ties That Bind over here. Mara Eve Robbins and Aaron's doing the big banners. Mara Eve Robbins, all the wonderful, beautiful, fluttering water flags. 10 a.m. at the Wells Fargo Plaza, the corner of Jefferson and Salem. And again, we'll have even more folks coming from North Carolina tomorrow. And our message to the banks is, you invest in our destruction, we divest in you. And it's going to have more music from some of the folks that you'll hear later tonight, and wonderful speakers, and it would be super to have a big voice there tomorrow. And Sharon's going to tell you and answer any questions you have about that.
Okay, first off, I have to correct Kay, because I'm not the lead organizer. I'm just one of the organizers. There were lots of us. There were about 40 people who jumped in and helped create this for tomorrow. And Desiree actually has done a lot of work in Roanoke because that's where she is. So I thank Desiree for everything. She got the permits and all of that for us to have so that we can have this tomorrow. And I kind of would like to say that I look at today as an opportunity for us to love on each other. When we're out in the field working in our communities, we don't always have the support that we need to say, you know, it's okay, we're going to put the next foot forward and keep moving. And so today we have that opportunity because there are so many people here that know what the landowners and all of us go through day to day. So please take the opportunity to love on your neighbor, to give them a hug. Now I'm asking, don't hug me, okay? I don't want any hugs because I have a cracked rib. But all of you, hug each other. It's just the prime opportunity for us to do that here tonight. So the other thing is that tomorrow we need to be really loud in Roanoke. We need to let Roanoke know that we're there. We need to shout and scream a little and sing along. And then there's going to be a march. And from the plaza, the Wells Fargo Plaza, we're going to be marching around. We're going to leave off a divestment letter at Wells Fargo, and we're going to also take one to SunTrust, but that's not a part of the march. And we're going to mail some to some other people as well. But we're going to march in silence. Mara really came up with that idea and thought that it would be striking to see 200, 300, 400 people marching in Roanoke in silence, carrying our water flags and carrying our divest signs and carrying our climate change signs and demanding that our government and our elected officials and the bureaucrats take us seriously. Because you know what? We're not backing down. We're not going anywhere. So it's going to start, music will start at 10 a.m. We're at the Wells Fargo Plaza, which is at 26 Salem Avenue, Southeast Roanoke. Music starts at 10, the program starts at 10:30. I will tell you that William Barber III is one of our speakers tomorrow. It's really nice to have him come back to Virginia. He has been an integral part in putting Union Hill on the map and making Union Hill a national issue with the compressor station and the Atlantic Coast Pipeline going through there. So it will be good to have him in Roanoke and in that position and to have the media be able to cover him and to get the MVP back in the national spotlight too, because Red and Minor did that, but we need to keep it there. So does anybody have any questions for me about tomorrow? Parking. You can park in the Wells Fargo lot. They have a parking garage right next door. So you can park there, and then there are other parking lots around downtown that you can park in. We're going to end up at the Martin Luther King statue, so we'll go down Salem Avenue to the First Street pedestrian bridge and go over the pedestrian bridge to the Martin Luther King statue there. And there will be a little bit of singing and some interfaith prayers there, and then it will end. If there are people who can't walk, like me, I won't march. You can drive around because there's parking on that side over there as well. So you could drive around if you can't, if you don't feel like you can march. I am concerned, one of the things I'm concerned about, when we came through Roanoke today, it was 91. It's supposed to be 90 tomorrow as well. There are water fountains and stuff close by in buildings like the Market Street building and that, but I want everybody to please be careful and stay hydrated tomorrow. We don't want to have to call an ambulance for anyone, so we will have marshals. So if you get into any trouble, they'll be wearing orange, the bright orange vests. Please go to one of the marshals for assistance.
Virginia's contribution, which is the producer today, but their contribution to tomorrow is this sculpture over in this corner. It's called Earth on Fire, and it rolls, so it can march with us.
A part of this evening as we come out of that space and join together. So there are sort of two main parts to this round. There's an A section, we'll call it, and it goes like this. Singers, please feel free to come in and face the group and you know, help sing if you'd like to. Yes, please, come on. So it goes like this. I come from the water, and to her I shall return like a drop of rain falls into the ocean. Let's learn that together. Ready? I come from the water, and to her I shall return like a drop of rain falls into the ocean. That sounds good. Can we make it ring under this tent? Let's hear it. I come from the water, beautiful, and to her I shall return like a drop of rain falls into the ocean. Now there's a second section that alternates with that music, and it sounds like this. Mother, carry me, your child I'll always be. Father, carry me down to the sea. Let's sing together. Mother, carry me, your child I'll always be. Father, carry me down to the sea. That sounds beautiful. One of the things that we talked about in the workshop was how healthful it is and how it restores our well-being to sing together. So let's sing those two sections first. Here we go. I come from the water, and to her I shall return like a drop of rain falls into the ocean. Mother, carry me, your child I'll always be. Father, carry me down to the sea. Now there's just a little bit more lyric to learn. It sounds like this. The river, she is flowing, flowing and growing. The river, she is flowing down to the sea. Let's sing together. The river, she is flowing, flowing and growing. The river, she is flowing down to the sea. Mother, carry me. Mother, carry me, your child I'll always be. Father, carry me down to the sea. I come from the water, and to her I shall return like a drop
flowing and growing. The river, she is flowing down to the sea. Once more, Mother, carry me, your child I'll always be. Father, carry me down to the sea.
Now, Catherine, who was teaching in the workshop, she says, if you can speak, you can sing. So please join us. If you would like to sing this as a round, the simplest way to do that is to just sing Mother Carry Me twice, and then you'll be offset. So shall we? If you can stand, if you're able, please do. It'll make your voices ring out. I hope that you'll be on your feet this evening. Here we go. I come from the water. Ready? I come from the water, and to her I shall return like a drop of rain falls into the ocean. Mother, carry me, your child I'll always be. Father, carry me down to the sea. Now choose yours. The river, she is flowing, flowing and growing. The river, she is flowing down to the sea. Mother, carry me, your child I'll always be. Father, carry me down to the sea. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, we'll hear that this evening. Thank you.
We'll have a few minutes to regroup, get another drink, go to the bathroom, and the Sun Sing concert will begin. The Sun Sing Collective was formed early this year, and the idea was to get musicians from all along both the Mountain Valley and the Atlantic Coast frac gas pipelines to come together and create a new anthem for this resistance, and to create a body of work, musical work, that we could use on days like today. And so they had very little rehearsal time. They traveled and drove and drove and drove, and they made something quite amazing, which you're about to see. And when we recorded that new song video, there was not 1 minute of studio time. Every single bit of it was recorded from the Sun Bus, which you can see through this opening right here, right behind the beautiful Emily and Bernadette. And this is a van that has a concert-level sound system in it that's entirely powered by the solar panels on the top. And sometime day we'll have enough money to buy an electric vehicle to carry those solar panels. This was designed and built by Graham Smith White, who was the producer of the first Sun Sing Collective video, is the technical director for today. He's taken this thing all over many states, to Yellowfinch, to many, many places to give good sound to this movement. And the Sun Bus is a beautiful thing. The Sun Sing Collective consists of Joshua Vanna, Lily Bechtel, Emily Blankenship Tucker, Gabe Gavin, Graham Smith White, Lainey Sullivan, BJ Brown, and we ended up a couple of days ago without a drummer, which if you're a musician, you know that's kind of that's a sudden swerve. But we had Mr. Tad Dickens step in and rehearse with us the last 2 days, and he's going to be our drummer tonight. So there's a new member of the Sun Sing Collective as of now, and that's Tad Dickens. Okay, BJ, you want to close us out with prayer, then we can stop the yak, have a little break, and go to music. Any questions, concerns, urgent speakings? Keep your complaints. Okay. BJ's going to take us out with a closing prayer.
Let us pray. We come with the prayer of thanksgiving for this moment of encouragement and hope through action. As we plant our feet on this land in unity, We are thankful that love resonates within our heart, mind, and spirit. Love and appreciation for this earth. Love for humanity as we recognize our purpose. As we stand knowing that love can heal this land, sustain our lives and future lives here on earth. Give us the heart and mind to care for each other and take care of our earthly home. We have plenty, and everything we need is here with us. As we prepare to share in music, let's remember that it is purpose to change the world, because it has the power to change the people in this world. Amen.
Okay, get a drink, settle down, get a comfy spot. Concert will start in 10 minutes.
Kentucky.